Hey guys. Oh, hello. Haircut. Hey there. How's it going? Got shaved. Got everything. Got a job fair in Nashua that's happening tomorrow, so I gotta look all spiffy. Length you Narther. I made a practice response to you like last Saturday, just like a few minutes or whatever, because my girlfriend was over. That's why I couldn't make a response to you last Thursday. Basically, I just got too tied up in other things, and I had to catch up with that by the end of Thursday. So then, by Friday, I had plans to have my girlfriend over for the weekend. So that basically stopped me from doing anything the weekend. Monday and Tuesday, I was on a personal note, I don't know, I guess it's kind of personal to talk about, but I was pretty depressed. I had lost my keys. I still lost my keys, but and I lost my notebook in 1 week, so I just had no motivation to do anything Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday, I finally got back in the spirit of things, but I just couldn't catch up enough to do a response to you. So finally, 1 week late, I am making a response to you, Length you Narther. So, god damn it, here we go. I'm going to do an introduction, or sort of preface to my talk to you, or maybe not even a preface, but this is going to be a long video. I can't shorten this for you. I can't shorten this for anyone. This is going to be a long video. It might even be double what you've done. Also, there might be some clippings. I'm kind of on call because I need to get my resumes printed out, and my aunt was supposed to do that, and she hasn't called back yet. So there might be some clippings. I'm actually literally going to leave this computer running while I get my resumes. So at some point, I may it may clip, and it may just show me talking still, and that's when that happened. I was so conflicted about doing this video because I was like, well, wait, how am I going to be able to stop it? But I forgot video editing magic. So by the powers of video editing, you will notice almost nothing, hopefully, if I do it right. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get going. This is going to take quite a while, and I've got a lot of ground to cover. And yeah, there's not much else I can say that. So let's get started. So first, you talk about videos. Well, yeah, I didn't have much interest in your videos after I watched a few. You talked about the ills of socialism and stuff like that, and you had a Gadsden flag, and you really did come off as right wing. Right wing. I'm not gonna lie. I totally thought, I didn't think you were conservative. I thought you were sort of I thought you were a right-wing libertarian, basically, and I seem to be right. You definitely seem to be a right-wing libertarian, and I'm not saying that as an insult. Left libertarians don't claim a monopoly on libertarianism. We just say that we're more consistent, just like right-wing libertarians at least shouldn't say a monopoly on libertarianism, and should just say, well, we're just more consistent or whatever. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about, I suppose, is that left libertarians are just more consistent than right-wing libertarians, and we'll get to why we should be right and left as we go along. But yeah, I just had a disinterest in your videos after a while. I watched a few about boss-worker relations and a few topics that interested me, but you handled it in a way that I felt was pretty typical, and I didn't really feel like I could gain much from learning. No offense to you, dude. I just didn't really feel like I could gain much from watching your channel, so I stopped. And I don't think I've watched anything more than a few of your videos. Yeah, so that's pretty much a common YouTube relation between us. You don't really have much interest in me. I don't have much interest in you. But here we are anyway. So I guess here we are. Free State Project. Yeah, I'm not a member. I'm not like, I'm not like a card-carrying FSP member or whatever you would want to call me. But I do like some of the ideas of the FSP, and I'm trying to get left libertarianism in there so we can get a left libertarian movement in New Hampshire, because that's where I want to live anyway, so I might as well try it here. But yeah, I don't mind the FSP. I have a love-hate thing with it. Okay, so let's really get into this. I actually had a much longer intro and preface than in my practice run, but I don't remember any of it, so I can't do it. So let's just get right into this. Right and left, defending the left-right spectrum. Oh, I remember some of it, but I won't do it. It was kind of it felt kind of jaded and mean, and I tried to make it non-jaded and non-mean, but it just didn't go out well. So I'm not going to do that. So right and left. So I'm going to defend the right and left spectrum, but not in the conventional political sense. I think that you think that I think. I think that you think that I think. Yes, that I like the current political spectrum, or that I like the right and left spectrum in general. The first assumption is false. I think the left-right spectrum, conservative and liberal, is utterly useless and stupid. And I think it's ahistorical, and it's so linear. It just doesn't have anything to do with reality. I'm pretty sure we'll pretty much agree on that, so I won't elaborate. But I do think there's room for libertarians to be right and left. And I think it's worth pointing out there is libertarians worth pointing out to be left and right. Like, it's only within a scale, or it's only within the scale that I would consider you right wing. I wouldn't consider you right wing compared to conservative or liberal or fascist or a Nazi or whatever. You'd be very left wing compared to a fascist and a Nazi, or even a conservative and a liberal. You'd from my point of view, you'd be pretty left. And I think that's a distinction worth having. Now, why the left and why not the right? Well, as you already brought up, you're aware of the French Assembly. You're aware of that Bastiat and Proudhon, Frederick Bastiat, a classical liberal thinker, and Proudhon, Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, an anarchist thinker, one of the first people allegedly to call themselves an anarchist in a positive sense. Both sat on the left on the French Assembly, pretty much right next to each other, because they were the most radical people in the French Assembly. And I think that keeping historical context in mind is important. And I think that you and other people like you think that it's irrelevant because it was hundreds of years ago, but that was the basis of the left-right spectrum. The only thing I'm really doing here is I'm keeping consistent. I'm keeping consistent with the roots. I'm keeping consistent with what libertarians originally would have considered themselves. We would have originally considered ourselves on the left. Everyone else would have been on the right to us. The liberals, the conservatives, the whatever. It doesn't matter. They're to the right of us. In different respects and in different, lines, And I would say even with an anarchist thought or libertarian thought or whatever you want to call it, there would be left and right spectrums. So, again, I like your views way more than I like, 99% of the population of the whole entire planet Earth. That's not an understatement. I mean, that's probably literally true. I think your ideas are way better than most people on this planet, probably. But within those people of ideas whose I like, you are probably on the low totem. You're on the low side of the totem, I mean. I like, that you're anti-government. That's cool. I like that you like liberty. Kind of cool, I guess. As a libertarian, I might think that's cool or something, maybe. I don't know. It's like this is a debate between two people who are on the same spectrum but are coming from different sides of it, And I think saying that you're right and I'm left is just a good distinguisher. Now, you don't have to think that. You can not think that, I guess. I just think it's a better tactic. And I think it's not only a better tactic, but I think it really is what libertarians should be. I think libertarians really should be left-wing libertarians. And I think that they always really have been, and as far as they're consistent, like Carl Hess and stuff. But, I'll continue more defenses of the left and right wing because I don't think I've done a good enough job. But to sum it up, so far, I think the French Assembly is one basis upon which you could say left and right have meaning. Originally did have meaning. Yes, meanings change. Words change. Left libertarians don't deny this. We don't think the left means what it did hundreds of years ago, but we're trying to bring that back. Now, if you don't think that's a fight worth fighting for, that's fine. But at least understand where we're coming from, and don't straw man us and say that, we think a liberal government would be better than conservative government. Because I got that kind of inclination from you at one point in the video when you were talking about right-wing governments and left-wing governments. I just want to clarify that I don't think a left-wing government is any better than a right-wing government. I'm against government in all of its forms, representative or otherwise. I oppose government. So I don't think a liberal government would be much better than a right wing, and they're both right wing as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, you don't know anyone who defines themselves as right wing libertarian. Yeah, well, there's a few reasons for that. First off, the reason is that left-wing libertarians basically came up with the idea of a right libertarian, or a left libertarian came up with it. I mean, basically left libertarians call themselves left libertarians. No one really calls themselves a right-wing libertarian. Some people do. Some people have embraced the term. I just kind of go ew at that, but, whatever. Hey, at least I know where they stand, It's not like I hate right libertarians, I don't hate them or whatever. I think they're cool guys. I just think they're inconsistent, that's all. It's not like a moral judgment or anything. It's not like I think you're evil just because you're a right-wing libertarian. I think you could be more consistent if you thought X, Y, and Z were true instead of A, B, and C were true. That's really all it is to it. I don't hate you. I don't hate anyone, really. I think hate is actually a waste of human emotion. To be completely off topic. I think hate is just usually a waste of time. Other people feel differently. Rothbard said the reason why he didn't like utilitarianism is it's wishy-washy, and that essay that critiques Friedman. Do you hate the state? I think it's a really stupid essay, actually. I'd have to reread it to actually tell you why. But I remember thinking about it recently and thinking, what a stupid essay. Just because you're a utilitarian doesn't mean you're wishy-washy, and doesn't mean you don't like the state or whatever. I don't know. Natural rights guys get on my ass. Piss me off sometimes. As you can notice, my I'm not that good with talking sometimes. Oh man, it sucks to have Asperger's. Anyway, so you don't hear them a lot. You don't hear them, or them meaning left libertarians, use it a lot either. Well, my response to that is that you must not be hanging out with a lot of left libertarians, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of. I hang around with plenty of left libertarians, and we say the term a lot. And so, it's probably because you're not too familiar with left libertarianism, like you already admitted. You admitted you don't know much about Benjamin Tucker, who is probably one of the biggest, or one of the big, I won't say one of the biggest, but one of the big inspirations for the left libertarian sort of idea, in some respects anyway, and for some left libertarians. So it's not surprising to me that you don't know anyone who calls himself a right-wing libertarian, and you don't know who even calls himself a left libertarian, or a left libertarian uses it. Now, you say that socially conservative doesn't necessarily equal right-wing. I don't know why you would argue this, and you don't elaborate on why that is. You just take it for granted. I don't know why you do that. If you're socially conservative, you're typically on the right wing, to me anyway. I don't know why you would argue otherwise. And again, going back to the left and right wing. Left wing doesn't really mean anything. Right wing doesn't really mean... Am I doing that in reverse? Whatever. Right wing doesn't really mean anything. These terms don't mean anything. They're like capitalism and socialism. Left wing and right wing don't mean anything except in context. That is why I call myself a left libertarian. I don't just call myself a leftist. I don't just call myself a radical leftist. I don't call myself a wishy-washy leftist or a hippie leftist or whatever. I call myself a left libertarian, because I think the context of libertarian and left makes people perplexed. And not just because it makes them perplexed, but I think it describes me the best. I have a lot of leftist values. I value things like equality of political authority. I value solidarity. I value mutual aid. I value more horizontal workplaces. I have sympathies towards things like feminism, environmentalism, all this other stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm a feminazi, and I hate that fucking phrase, because that's Rush Limbaugh's phrase, and libertarians actually use that, and that really bothers the hell out of me, because, why would you use a phrase Rush Limbaugh came up with? Unless you don't know that he came up with it. But if you didn't, now you do. Rush Limbaugh came up with that term. Please do not use it. And maybe you say, well, that's not fair because you're just discrediting it because it's Rush Limbaugh. Then you're just defending Rush Limbaugh. And I think you have to reevaluate your values, dude. I can't say anything more than that. I don't want to get too much on a tangent. But I don't think I have to explain to you Rush Limbaugh sucks, and that no one should really be using the same vocabulary that man has chosen to use. if recent events are anything to be taken from. So again, left wing and right wing and whatever are not useful except in context. So just calling myself a left winger would be pointless. Just calling you a right winger would be pointless. But I have leftist goals, and I want to achieve them through libertarian means. So that means that I want to do it through peaceful and voluntary actions, and that's the same for all libertarian left libertarians. You might not like their goals, but we're using the same means that you probably want, or same sort of ethical backing for the actions we're using. They're all voluntary, and usually, I would say almost universally, non-violent. If they are violent, then they're usually violence in self-defense or against property that doesn't actually legitimately belong to the owner anyway, or something like that. I have to disagree that you think basically the right-wing left libertarian or right-wing left-wing discussion is stupid. I agree, but only because there's no context involved in the right-wing left-wing, because right-wing left-wing can mean so many things, but if you narrow it down to left libertarian and right libertarian, I feel like it's a lot better of a conversation. But that's my point of view. You don't have to agree. I know you probably won't. I know probably no matter what argument I make, you won't agree, but hopefully we learn something from each other through all of this. Anyway, moving on. You say left left does not necessarily equal you say that the left wing is basically a miscellaneous basket of policy positions, and you say the same thing about right wing. Yeah, that'd be true in the contemporary political sense, but as I've already told you, left libertarians aren't thinking about a political spectrum in that sense. And basically, you could say the same thing about any position or any philosophy, like ever. I'm going to need this damn thing. You could say the same damn thing about anything. Like, any philosophy is just a basket of different positions on different things and different values that support them. I mean, that doesn't disprove anything. Even if you were right, which you're not, because you're not even right about the context in which left libertarians, I gotta stop saying left wing, left libertarians use the left and right spectrum. I mean, they're not even talking about left wing and right wing in the modern political sense. We completely reject that spectrum and substitute our own. So even if you were talking about the context in the right context, it still wouldn't prove much. So the left I support is the anti-privilege left, the anti-establishment left, not the Democrats, not the reformist or whatever. And I think that you're misunderstanding left libertarianism. I feel like you should really read this. It's called How to Reach the Left, and it's by Roderick T. Long. Now, it's specifically geared towards Austrian libertarians, but I think anybody could read it and find that there's something to like about it. Now, there's tons of stuff in here, and I haven't reread it in a while, or I read it once and I reread it, and now I'm trying to read it right now to see where I can find it. Yeah, so he says, there are many left-wingers whose primary motivation for their left-wing political stance is the very libertarian impulse to protect people who are being pushed around. These left-wingers look at contemporary society and see an economy dominated by mammoth impersonal corporations with enormous and seemingly unaccountable power. They see lower and middle-income people disempowered in the workplace and struggling to make ends meet. They see institutions and social practices rigged against black markets, women, gays, immigrants, and other oppressed groups, and they turn to government to redress these inequities, viewing the democratic state as an institution in principle accountable to the public, and thus able to serve as a bulwark against private power and privilege. Call this variety of left-wingers the anti-privileged left. And this is the left we can reach, he continues to say. The anti-privileged left is already largely on our side when it comes to civil liberty issues and to war. These are the folks who didn't switch their positions on the issue when the White House turned from red to blue. I say they're only largely with us on civil liberties because this group still tends to be bad, at least, on one civil liberty, gun rights. But otherwise, their chief sticking points are economic. Thus, we need to show them that a freed market can actually achieve the goals of the anti-privileged left better than government regulations can. And that, thanks to the public choice problems on the one hand and what Mises calls the economic democracy of the market on the other, markets are actually more, not less, accountable to the public than the governments are. So he goes on and on and on. I'm not going to keep, lecturing you about it. But I feel like you didn't read a single link I shared to you in my last response to you. So what I'm going to do in this response is I'm literally going to, and I don't mean to, this is probably going to sound patronizing, and I apologize. I'm going to spoon feed you these quotes from left libertarians, because I think that's the only way you're going to read them, is if you hear it from my voice and have to actually integrate it into your response. So I'm going to be quoting from many different left libertarian writers while I talk about this to back up what I say. Now again, you can disagree with this approach. This is basically reaching out to Occupy Wall Street, or a lot of people in there who have good intentions but use the government to go out these intentions. Now we both agree that's wrong. Make no mistakes about it. Roderick Long and I and other left libertarians like us disagree that using the government is the best option. But we think their ends are good. Therefore, we're left libertarians. We have the same sort of end goals as liberals do, in some ways anyway. Some ways we might disapprove of what they even want as end goals, but generally speaking, we want the same end goals that they do in similar ways. Not all the time, not in every single case, but for the most part. And when we disagree, I usually find it pretty worth my time to disagree. But that aside, I really do think that libertarians should be more like that and more leftist instead of right-wing. So you say, I don't have any faith that a left-wing government, ... I'll just stop you right there. I don't either. And I've already pointed this out. I pointed it out ahead of time, I'll admit. But you said, I don't have any faith that a left-wing government. Yeah, left libertarians don't either. That's because we're largely anarchists. And the ones who aren't anarchists, like the bleeding heart libertarians, they're not really, they don't either. I mean, they might to a certain extent, but not really. I mean, a left-wing government in the conventional sense isn't what they, isn't what they, are looking for, probably. Now, you say something about identify with them, how... Oh, I don't know. I don't even know what this quote was referring to, because I just kind of quote you as you're saying a sentence. But anyway, I don't really identify with these left wingers. These sort of left wingers, quote unquote. I think they're actually to the right of me, but I would say they're definitely more reachable than the aristocratic left, which is more in favor of hammering people's lives out as they want it. And, see other people as their property. The establishment left, or the people who are really gung-ho about the Democrats and the Green Party or whatever. Maybe not even the Green Party. I don't know what you said when you said identify with them. So you're talking about Charles Johnson versus Lee Doran. That was a great debate. I was actually there. If you look at the video, on the first video, you can see me at 11 seconds or so. For a few seconds, I'm wearing a Metallica shirt. Anyway, I was there. That was one of my first experiences with left-wing libertarianism. And I got to tell you, Lee Doran got destroyed. I don't care what anybody says. Well, I do, but I really think Lee Doran just got destroyed by Charles Johnson. Lee Doran just kept asking these really short questions after a while, and Charles Johnson gave these really big answers. And people were criticizing him for it. And I was like, how do you expect him to give you short answers? He's coming from a completely different side of libertarianism that is hardly ever talked about. What do you think he's going to have to do? Like, he can't give you short answers. That would just beg more questions. So I think Charles Johnson did a really good job, despite the pressures he was under and the fact that Free Talk Live is pretty much, well, it's an anarcho-capitalist show. So I have some misgivings about it. And, well, I won't get into my misgivings about Free Talk Live, because that's neither here nor there. But I thought it was a great debate. I thought Charles Johnson destroyed Lee Doran, and that's who you're talking about, by the way, how the world works. How the world really works, sorry. Not just how the world works, but how it really works. I've seen a few of his videos. I've never really been impressed by him. I don't really pay attention to Lee Doran. I don't know that he's really worth paying attention to. from what I hear from a few of my comrades in the libertarian movement, he doesn't seem worth paying attention to either way. So, yeah. Great debate. You were thinking about Lee Doran. It was at Liberty Forum 2010, I think, and I was there. Great debate. Now, yeah, you talk about the French Assembly being the historical basis for left libertarianism. Yeah, that's not the only basis, and that's certainly a low-hanging fruit. So, good job for reaching out and grabbing it, I guess. But the fact that we call ourselves left-wing doesn't completely have to do with the tradition, or not the tradition, but the way the left-right spectrum started, although that's part of it. But that's not the whole thing. More to the point, it's because we have a lot of leftist values, or traditionally leftist values. Yeah, it's just, that's not the only reason. We also have it because we have these left-wing values, and we want to do them through libertarian means. Wow, Freudian slip. So, like, Gary Chartier has a few blog posts about this, and I want to show it to you, or not show it to you, but read it to you, because it's a very informative kind of take on the whole thing. And I've already actually tried to link this to you in my previous video, but you didn't seem to you didn't seem to really take it. So I'm gonna try again, and hopefully this gets through to you this time. But if it doesn't, oh well. I don't think you're thick-headed or anything. I'm pretty thick-headed, but I hope this gets through to you. So he talks about framing left libertarianism a first pass. Now I'm gonna go into this, and then I'm going to go into the left and left libertarian. Now, he says LL, or left libertarianism, is authentically libertarian, both because it is anti-statist. The LLs who come to readily mind are all anarchists. I take it as a given here that LL is an anarchist, or something close enough for the difference to be relevant, and because it affirms the value of markets and property rights. At the same time, LL is authentically leftist because it seeks to challenge privilege, hierarchy, exclusion, deprivation, and domination, both ideologically and practically, and because it can exhibit a genuine commitment to inclusion, empowerment, and mutual respect. Now, again, I'm going to link Framing Left Libertarianism, a first pass, in here, in the description. But for now, I also want to talk about the left and left libertarianism. Now, you might not know what subordination, exclusion, deprivation, vulnerability, or any of those things really are, and you think they're really vague and they have no definition. Well, I'm prepared to meet that critique, meet it head on, and to hopefully, persuade you otherwise. So he says an authentically leftist position, he suggests, is marked by opposition to subordination, exclusion, and deprivation. And left libertarians are opposed to all those things. So he says one person A is subordinate to another B when B has significant, persistent power over A. The power involved may be physical, but also may be economic, psychic, as in mental, social, or cultural. The important thing is that it determines to some meaningful degree what A does. A is significantly unfree in relation to B, either because B can impose on A some cost that A is unwilling to bear, or because A genuinely, but mistakenly believes that B is entitled to determine the character of A's conduct. So, again, you may still think that's too vague. I'm not going to go into the whole paragraph and talk about what he thinks subordination is, but you can read The Left and Left Libertarian if you're not convinced that this is not vague enough. If you read it and you're still not convinced, then I'll be willing to have a conversation with you. If you do not read it and you're still not convinced, I don't know how much sympathy I'll have for you, because I'm just asking you to read a few blog posts. These aren't the longest things in the world. They're long, but they're not that long. It's like 5 page downs on the keyboard. So it's really not a big deal. I promise you. And that's not me talking down to you. I'm just trying to reassure you. Anyway, or me joking, actually. It was me making a joke. So, exclusion. Some person A is excluded from a group when it is made clear that she does not belong to the group, that she is entitled neither to the material incidents of membership nor to the recognition as a fellow member and respect associated with belonging. Now, you may have some problems with this, but Chartier is way ahead of you and already is ready to take those on. Unavoidably, some intimate relationships exclude. Close friendships and monogamous partnerships are obvious examples. No credible leftist position will seek simply to eradicate the particular of these relationships, and it can thus defend no bright-line rule regarding permissible and impermissible exclusion. Now, then he tries to offer at least two kinds of limits on morally permissible exclusion. But I'm not going to get into those because, again, it's going to take up too much time. This is already going to be a really long video. So he says deprivation. Credible leftism will oppose deprivation. Some person A experiences deprivation if she lacks the resources needed for 1. Physical survival and health, 2. Clothing and water, and 3. Material circumstances that qualify minimally dignified in accordance with the norms prevailing in her community. To oppose deprivation in this sense is not so far as to assign blame for anyone's deprived conditions, nor is it, I repeat, to identify any particular remedy for deprivation as a morally required or permitted. That is a separate question. A position is credibly leftist if it regards ignoring the deprivation of others as a prima facie, I hope I'm pronouncing that right because I don't think I ever have, morally objectionable. But a position can reasonably be regarded as leftist while defending any of a wide range of responses to that deprivation as consistent with or demanded by prudences or justice, provided those responses can be reasonably regarded as effective or likely to be so. Finally, vulnerability. A position qualifies credibly as leftist position if it involves clear objection on moral grounds as subordinating people, excluding them from community membership, or tolerating their deprivation. I suggest that concern with subordination, exclusion, and deprivation can be seen as united by a concern with respect for and protection of people who are vulnerable. Vulnerable to the power of those who dominate and exclude, vulnerable to the circumstances that lead to deprivation, and the risk associated with being deprived. More broadly, we might rightly include within the concern for the vulnerable that animates positions credibly recognized as leftist concern for those who suffer the direct violence of the state when it wages war, tortures, or are often in prisons. Now, there's other range of leftist positions you could take, blah, 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 blah. I won't get into them. But I hope that gives you some idea of where I'm coming from. I completely agree with Chartier. I don't think there's any big, bold line that says this is where exclusion starts and where it stops. I don't think you're going to be able to create that anyway. And I really don't prescribe hard and fast systematic rules anyway. I think they're kind of pointless because they don't usually play out well in reality. So there you go. That's where I'm coming from. I've just defined left libertarianism and why left libertarian is authentically leftist and libertarian to you. You can reject that if you want. We can talk about why you reject that, but I think you should give it more credit than you're giving it. So you said not the first I've ever heard of Benjamin R. Tucker. I must apologize. I'm sorry if I made it sound like it was as if you knew nothing about him. That was never my intention. I never meant to make it sound condescending or something. You kind of say, yeah, that's not the first time I've heard of him, as if I was calling you an idiot or something. So if I made it sound like that, I apologize. Again, I'm not the best with communication sometimes and inflections of voice and whatnot. So if I sound like I'm trying to make you sound like an idiot or something like that, try to be charitable with me and presume that I'm not, because typically I have no interest in making you sound like an idiot. You'll do that fine on your own. Bam! No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So yeah, you say the labels have changed. Yes, words change, but so has capitalist. So how do you defend being an anarcho-capitalist? How do you defend being an anarcho-capitalist if the labels have changed? If capitalism really doesn't solidly mean what you want it to mean, then how can you defend that? How is your position much more defendable on its face than my left libertarian position? Have you thought about that at all? I mean, this is where you might think I'm being condescending, but I'm genuinely asking you, have you thought about that? Because if not, then that argument that you're making against me applies as much to you. But either way, even if it doesn't, that's not really my main argument anyway, so no big loss if it turns out not to be true. And you'd have quite the challenge proving to me that it's not. But if you want to take me up on that challenge, go right ahead. I welcome it. So either way, even if it doesn't work, even if the leftist term has changed, we can work on it if it means enough to us. If it doesn't mean that much to you, okay, well then that just further reinforces why you're not a left libertarian, I guess. But that doesn't make the position invalid to hold. It just showcases your lack of emphasis or caring, or, sorry if this sounds insulting, I'm really trying not to be insulting, lack of understanding about our positions. In any event, this is one of those other low-hanging fruits in the left libertarian movement that you're getting at. So even if everything I've said so far is misguided and wrong, I'm not feeling too bad about it. You say government control of the means of production / wealth redistribution, etc. is socialist. No. God damn it, I don't know why people do this. I'm not mad at you, I'm just mad that people still fucking do this. This really pisses me off, and I hate it. Socialism has never historically meant, just like capitalism has never historically meant, one thing at one time. Never. You can think that socialism de facto means something, but you are wrong. You are wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Socialism has never meant just one thing. Capitalism has never meant just one thing. Never. I don't think there's been a point in history, except maybe when the terms first started off, that they meant just one thing. Now, socialism, I don't know, actually means the workers controlling the means of production, or society, or the means of production being controlled more socially than individually by capitalists, hence why capitalism is called capitalism. Or that's one explanation. I don't really buy it, but that's one explanation. If you're curious why I don't think the POOTMOP definition of capitalism, production, the means of production argument, privately held means of production argument is valid, you should check out Roderick Long's POOTMOP and POOTMOP Redux blog posts, and I will link that in the description. And you got a whole bunch of reading for you. And I'm welcome to, if you read all this stuff, dude, I mean, I'm totally willing to read shit that you want me to, as long as it's not like a book. I'm just giving you blog posts, man. I'm not giving you books or big long essays usually, with the exception of Charles Johnson. But I think his is worth reading. Actually, I would just suggest you just read Charles Johnson if you read nothing else. Liberty, Equality, and Solidarity Towards a Dialectical Anarchism. If you read one thing by a left libertarian, just read that. I mean, then I'll be happy. I don't care if you don't read anything else. That's like the best introduction to left libertarianism I can think of. But anyway, there are some links I can give to you by Gary Chartier and Sean P. Wilbur on socialism. I'll put up the links in the description. You don't really have to read those. I don't care about the capitalism socialism debate, but it's not a discussion I really like to have. But I'm not unwilling to get into it if you really want to. But I'm not a big fan of the capitalism socialism debate. I don't call myself either, because I think the terms are question begging and loaded concepts. Now you say Karl Hess wasn't a panderer. I agree. But I wasn't saying he was. I was saying Rothbard was. Sorry if I was unclear about that. You say he turned away from his left-wing values. You only say it for a few seconds, admittedly. And then you kind of stop, and then you go back to something else. But I would like sources on that, because to my knowledge, he never did. And actually, to the day he died, he had a picture of Kropotkin over his bed where he slept. So, I don't know about that. You said that the alliance with paleo-libertarians or paleo-conservatives by libertarians, making them basically paleo-libertarians, was a huge mistake. Completely agree. So, no disagreements there. Approaching the left is not necessarily approaching Maoists. Karl Hess might have approached Maoists, but that doesn't mean I am, dude. Not necessarily, anyways. I mean, I might, but I don't think so. They seem really... I don't know. I don't even know a lot of Maoists. The only Maoist I really know who's serious about his Maoism is that Maoist that's on YouTube. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Look him up. He's kind of funny. He had a totally serious video about bronies. I don't know if you know what bronies are. Never mind. Just never mind. I didn't even bring it up. I didn't bring up Maoism. I didn't bring up shit. Anyway, you say approaching does not necessarily equal pandering, and approaching is better than pandering. Again, I agree. Left libertarianism isn't about pandering to the left. It's about being more consistent. That might lead us to associating more with left-wing organizations, but that's like saying you're pandering for associating with right-wing associations that you feel comfortable in. It's just what you feel comfortable with, dude. I'm not going to say you're pandering. You're just having a good time with people who at least partially agree with what you're saying, or the way you're saying it. Now, I either want to answer this, or you actually literally ask the question, who are left libertarians approaching? But I'm going to tell you who we're approaching, and I've already told you. But we're approaching the anti-privileged left, and that's really all there is to it. Again, I encourage you to. I don't know why I said remember. I think I was trying to say I remind. Yeah, but like I said before, just to remind you, I guess is what I was going for. Roderick Long's article, "How to Reach the Left," is the article I would recommend to you. So, Ron Paul. No, I'm not going to touch Ron Paul. I'm not even going to go near that issue. I don't even care enough about it. There are so many issues in this debate that we could have about. Ron Paul is not going to be one of them. I've debated enough about Ron Paul. He's not going to win the election. I don't care. That's all I've got to say. I don't care. So we're not going to discuss Ron Paul as far as I'm concerned. That's nothing against you, bro. Nothing against you. I just don't want to talk about him. Too many other issues, and it's just not worth my time. So anyway, you say you don't smoke weed, and you don't do this, and you don't do that. Look, I don't smoke weed either. And smoking weed or doing drugs or not doing drugs doesn't make you socially conservative or not socially conservative necessarily. You could be socially conservative and still smoke weed for cancer or something like that, or as a medicine or as a pain reliever. And that's a totally neutral use of it. It's not political at all. And you could even advocate for marijuana legalization, but you would only be doing it just so you can, get better marijuana so you can deal with the pain of cancer or whatever. Totally neutral, totally non-political. So, yeah, smoking drugs isn't necessarily left-wing. That's kind of silly to say. I don't know that you were saying it exactly, but I feel like you're implying it by saying, look, I don't smoke weed, I don't do this, I don't do that, I'm not left-wing. But smoking weed isn't necessarily a left-wing thing, so I don't know why you brought that up. Now, you're just agnostic on culture, I think. Or not agnostic, but you're just apathetic, really. And I think that's problematic. And we're going to start getting into culture pretty soon, I'm sure. Yeah, we're going to get into culture pretty soon, and this is going to be the bulk of my response to you, because I thought your responses were pretty straw-manish, even if you don't intend to be, and I know you don't, but anyway, I think it's problematic to be not agnostic, apathetic to culture, because culture really matters. Culture adds up, man. Culture is the collection of norms and values that people have when they group together as individuals, in communities, in groups, in teams, in whatever. They all have a culture to them. And if you're apathetic to the cultures that they create, that's problematic. Because people can create really fucked up cultures that don't necessarily aggress against people and are still really problematic. Because you can exclude, deprive, and, infringe, take advantage of vulnerable people without being aggressive or without, being physically aggressive. You can fraud people. I know that's covered under the NAP, but you can fraud people and never physically aggress against them or touch them. You can do that all over the internet, and plenty of people do. And I just think that it's problematic to just shrug it off and act as if it doesn't matter, because it does matter to me. I think that we should really be careful about what norms and values we have in our communities in an anarchist society, because I want the best norms and best values, that way people can live the best lives. It doesn't have anything to do with having a co-equal status. You brought up anything that doesn't have a co-equal status is bad. No, that's not my point, and that's not true. I'm sure worker-boss relations could be good if they survive in a freed market and they even manage to outdo the worker cooperatives. If worker-boss relations outdo cooperatives, okay, then I guess cooperatives just weren't a good idea. It doesn't mean I'm going to force it on you or start boycotting everybody. I'll just admit that I was wrong. We can move on from there and say, okay, I guess worker-boss relationships really can work in a free market. I guess I was wrong. Oops. Now, you might say something like, well, sure, you'll admit that as a left libertarian, but further leftists won't. Well, that's irrelevant. I'm not further left than a left libertarian. I'm not an anarcho-communist or a syndicalist or whatever. Mutualists are actually counted under the ALL, but some mutualists like that and some mutualists don't. Whatever. It's just how it is. I don't know what to tell them. So yeah, again, I find it problematic that you're so apathetic to culture. If you were really actually consistently apathetic to culture, I would think you'd be apathetic now. But I understand that you're just apathetic once we reach anarchism, because you think that once we reach anarchism, somehow culture won't be a thing to worry about. I think that's problematic because people are naturally flawed. We agree, yes? I can't imagine you disagreeing. So unequal, relationships are going to happen all the time. And what do I mean by unequal? Well, I just mean the power is going to be shifted in one person sometimes, and sometimes, or all the time, but sometimes to such a big degree that the other person can deprive, exclude, or unnecessarily harm another person in ways that don't violate the NAP or property rights. And again, you can, if you want examples, and you're probably saying examples, please. And I'll say, look at Gary Chartier and what he talked about with exclusion and stuff like that. None of that requires aggression. If I don't give you water in the middle, I know this is a cliched example. If I don't give you a water in the middle of the desert while you're thirsty, or I pay you, or I get you to pay me a really high amount of money for the water just so you won't die, I'm not aggressing against you. I haven't touched you. I don't know. Maybe you could count that as aggression, but it's definitely deprivation. It's definitely exclusion from resources. It's definitely taking advantage of the vulnerable, and I'm against that. And I think it's wrong to charge someone $1,000 for a bottle of water in the middle of the desert. I think it's morally objectionable. I'm not saying I'm going to fire a gun at the guy. I'm not saying I'm going to bash his skull in. I'm just saying it's morally objectionable. Now, you say historically cooperatives don't work very well. It doesn't happen very often. You don't say. I'm trying to do that meme. Anyway, this is Brian Kaplan, an anarcho-capitalist, actually made a point in favor of cooperatives, and I don't think he ever meant to do it, but cooperatives have a weird factor to them. They have the weird factor to them, and what this means, and I don't know if I'd be able to find, because I can't remember what the Kaplan article is called, and it's been so goddamn long. They have a weird factor, and that means that no capital investor is going to invest in a project that isn't really seen much in the economy, or at least to them isn't seen much. I'm actually going to put a link in the description of California cooperatives, cooperatives in Spain, cooperatives in Argentina, cooperatives elsewhere. And, we can... I totally disagree with you that they haven't historically worked well, and they don't happen very often. And when that is the case, because it absolutely has been the case throughout history, it's usually the state's fault. And I don't mean to make this sound like a blame the state game, but I'm telling the truth. Like, the capitalist doesn't want competition when they have state subsidies and stuff like that. The worker cooperative is explicitly working against the capitalist sort of, top-down sort of way of thinking and way of producing. Now, the reason why they don't historically work is not only because investors find it risky, because it's not a sort of organization that usually happens in the economy, but because the state doesn't really encourage it. They don't typically encourage cooperatives unless it's like in a really bad economy, like like ours, or like Argentina, or like whatever. And even then, it's only a temporary thing, so the state can eventually take over and replace it with more capitalist, based organizations. So the capitalists and the state seem to be very much intertwined to me. And historically, I think they really have been. If you read The Iron Fist Behind the Invisible Hand by Kevin Carson, you'll know what I mean. Or the Subsidy of History, and I'll link that in the description. But the Subsidy of History, I mean, if you read that, I mean, that's just enough to convince you, I think, that capitalists, broadly speaking, have very much have had a big role with the state. The role of monopoly capitalism, and the role of the state in monopoly capitalism by Joseph Stromberg is another good read. And yeah, I don't know really. I mean, I think your argument is sort of a straw man because you're pointing out the obvious, but we don't think that. Or no, it's not a straw man. It's a misconception. It's a misconception, not a straw man. Everything's a straw man. It's just like it doesn't historically work well because the environment for it isn't very suitable for it to happen, and it doesn't happen very often for the same reason, like namely the state and the capitalists exist. Now, what do I mean by capitalist? Because I'm sure you're saying, explain, please. Well, what I mean by capitalist is not someone who simply invests money or wealth or whatever. That's called an entrepreneur, and I'm totally for entrepreneurs. I think they're great. But I think a capitalist is historically someone who accumulates a lot of capital and uses that capital to sort of distort the marketplace, and they often use the state in addition to it to further distort the marketplace and back up their own corporation or big business or whatever. Again, another essay to look at is Big Business and the Rise of American Statism by Roy A. Childs. Because he does a lot of good work in showing how much the capitalists or corporatists or whatever you want to call them have been intertwined with the state. And I really think capitalists and corporatists are just the same thing. A capitalist isn't simply someone who just gets money and buys things or invests in things. I think that's a really passive, neutral term. Anybody could do that. That would make anyone a capitalist, which might be the point. But that makes the definition kind of useless, because it's like then everyone's a capitalist, and there's no real point of distinguishing through the term. The term doesn't seem as useful if everyone applies to it, or if a lot of people apply to it or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of my explanation for why cooperatives historically, quote unquote, don't work well and quote unquote don't happen very often, largely because of state capitalism. Now. We begin on this really, really overused cliche that you said so much. You say, I worry that you care so much. Like, you said this like 5 times. Like, I wouldn't be so upset if you had only said it once or twice. But, I gotta say this really pissed me off, dude. Because if you're gonna strawman me, at least strawman me just once or twice. No. You said this time and time again. I got the point. You think that I care about what other people think. You think I care about what other people... you think I care too much about society. I care too much. I worry that you don't care enough. Like, we're at the polar opposite. You think I care too much. I don't think you care enough. I don't know how else to tell you that, man. I really think that you don't care enough about culture, and you don't care enough about society in an anarchist society. That sounds repetitive, but I can't think of what else to say. I worry that you don't care enough. I think that it's problematic to be apathetic to culture, because culture builds up. And another point I was going to make about that, and I won't try to beat the points because that would make me a hypocrite, but or repeat the points again and again because that would make me a hypocrite because I just criticized you for doing that. Is that the market is really just us. It's just made up of many individuals, and those individuals come together in groups, and those groups have certain values and ideas, and those values and ideas coalesce to become a sort of culture. It's like, and that affects the marketplace. So it's like, you should really care about culture if you're a libertarian. I don't care what stripe you are. You should care about culture. Whether we're in an anarchist society or not, that doesn't change. Individuals coming together, having ideas, expressing them with each other, and creating new cultures all the time doesn't change just because the government doesn't exist anymore and because other systems of oppression are minimized or don't exist or whatever. That's not going to stop happening, and you need to realize that. And that's why you can't be apathetic, about culture, man, because culture matters. And that's a sort of left-wing point by itself, which is another reason why I call myself a left-libertarian, because I think culture is a really important thing. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all, just like I'm sure you don't think economics are the be-all, end-all, but we both say it's really damn important. You think economics is really damn important. I think culture is really damn important. I don't put so much of an emphasis on economics. Totally appreciate people who do. If I think they're right anyway, or if I like their work otherwise, I totally think they have a place in the libertarian movement. I don't think the Austrian School of Economics is like totally bunk or whatever. I haven't done enough reading to ever say that. I don't think I ever will. Economics is just not a field of study that really interests me, and it's really as simple as that. It really is. I can't, I don't hate economists. I think they have some cultural biases that I disagree with oftentimes, and other problems, but I don't hate them. I don't think they're bad guys. I don't think they're the devil de facto. I don't ever think they're the devil, but because I don't believe in that kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah, so, you say something about order their life around. No, I have no interest in ordering people's lives around. I have an interest in ordering my life around, and if people want to cooperate with me, so we order each other's lives around voluntarily, I'm cool with that. Not even ordering our lives around, but getting it organized, because order sounds too authoritarian to me. I don't like using that word. No, I don't want to order other people to do things, and I think that this is a straw man of my position. And I don't even think you knew enough about my position to say this. I think you're making leaps in logic to say this kind of stuff, dude. And I don't really appreciate it because I feel like you're strawmanning me time and time again. So I'm not interested in ordering other people's lives around. I'm interested in ordering my life around or getting it organized. Organize. I'm going to say organize instead of order because I don't like that word. I want to organize my life. I want to help other people organize their lives if they want to. I'm not going to force people to organize their lives. That's not my style. I have no interest in doing it, dude. And I'm sorry you feel like otherwise, but I don't really care. I hate to say this, but in the end, I don't care. If you're so paranoid, or sorry, not paranoid, skeptical, that I want to order other people's lives around, honestly, that's your problem, not mine. I'll try to reword my stuff as best I can with you. I definitely want us to have a good conversation together. But when you accuse me of wanting to order other people's lives around, that offends me. Because I don't want to order other people's lives around. I think they can order their own lives around, organize their own lives, their own lives. That's why I'm an anarchist. That's why you're an anarchist. But I also pay attention to what those people who don't want to cooperate with me, within a limited frame, within my community, within the community that I live, within maybe some neighboring communities to some extent or another. But it's not the whole world, maybe to some extent or another due to internet, but not in my day-to-day activities or interactions, I'm not worried because some guy in India is being prejudicial towards their wife. I'm going to trust that the community in there is going to take care of it. I'm not going to fly all the way to India and rush in and say, oh my god, I heard someone was being prejudicial towards women. I got here as fast as I could. I'm not going to do that, It's just silly. I'm not ordering other people's lives around. Let's move on. You say it's none of my business. Well, maybe to some extent you're right. But I think it is sort of your business. I think when people in your community, or if you choose to live in a community, if you want to be a hermit or you want to form loose associations of individuals instead of communities, that's cool. I have nothing against that. I'm not going to stop you. I think actually that's a cool way of doing things. I'm introverted. I totally get why someone would want to do that. But at the end of the day, I realize I'm a social animal, and that means I want to interact with people. I want to be around people. Even if that's just the internet or that's just some good close friends, I want to be around people. And so I'm happy to be involved in a community. And if you're not, that's cool. I don't want to force you into community life. I totally don't. And again, I hope you can take me at my word that I don't want to order your life around. I don't want to order anyone's life around. But I do want the best norms and values for society possible. And I will work on that by exemplifying those values through myself and through close friends who agree to also exemplify it, and through associations that I associate with that also exemplify it, and by shunning organizations that I feel do the opposite. And I think anybody does that. Maybe not even shunning, but maybe getting into... Well, first off, I wouldn't de facto shun them, or I wouldn't ostracize them offhand. Like, you disagree with me on racism? Ostracized. Done. Shamed. Shunned. Blacklisted. Done. No, I wouldn't do that. I honestly think shaming and ostracizing is the last refuge. Absolute last measure. If you ostracize someone, it better be damn important. It better be something big. Not just being a racist or something. Now, I think we should put social pressures on racists and people like that. But it shouldn't be shunning and ostracization. We need to show understanding towards people like that who think that there's the superior race. We need to say, okay, why do you feel that? What is your basis? Are you going to violently enforce ideas like that? Are you going to tell other people that you're the superior race and that we should look down on other people and be prejudiced and exclude them and deprive them and take advantage of them? Because if you are, we're going to oppose that. And if you try doing that shit, we might take measures to talk to you about it first and say, hey man, we're not cool with that. We're not going to kick you out or anything, but we want you to knock that off. And if you want to talk about it, we're happy to talk about it, but let's not do that shit. We don't appreciate it. If he continues to do it, we'll kick him out. I don't see anything wrong with that. If you don't listen to people, on their justly acquired land or property or whatever, as I'm sure you'll agree, that's their problem, not ours. So again, I think people reinforcing these sort of cultures or ideas and norms about racism and sexism and homophobia are our business to an extent. I'm not going to go knocking on their door. You bring that up later. You bring this up later in the video, and I'll actually address it now while I'm on the topic. You say, if I told you, oh yeah, my neighbor's a racist, he doesn't like black people, would you knock on his door and talk to him and tell him to stop being racist? No. I'm like I said, I'm introverted. I have Asperger's. I'd probably be the last person to do that. But I might say, okay, well, how are they a racist? What do they do? Are they explicitly racist? Do they, do they really harm other people in any way? Besides physically, do they really make people feel bad about who they are and their identity to a big extent? Is their impact of their racism big? Is it worth watching? And if you said, no, not really, he keeps to himself, but I just know he has those opinions, I was like, okay, let's move on then. But, if you said, well, yeah, I saw him talking to some black kids and really, saying these heinous words to them and calling them these names and implying, they should be ashamed of who they are, and they ran away crying, I'd say, oh, that's kind of fucked up. Maybe we should do something about that. And you'd probably shrug and say, well, maybe, but it's not any of my business. He didn't physically hurt anyone or break the NAP or anything. And I would say, okay, well, you don't have to join me, but I feel like this is wrong. I feel like you shouldn't be treating people like that. You should be treating people fairly. And you would say something like, oh, don't be such a busybody. He's like, well, no, I feel like I'm creating a conversation between you and me, on a conversation between you and me. But anyway, just to wrap this up, this section anyway, I would say, well, you can think I'm being a busybody. If at the end of the day you still think that and I can't convince you, that's fine. But I really do think this is wrong, that you shouldn't make kids feel bad about who they are, because it can really have big psychological impact on them, and it can really demoralize them and cause them to do, violent things towards other people later in their life because they're not proud of who they are or whatever. And you might say, well, whatever, and I'll just say, okay, well, I'll see you later, and I'm going to talk to some of my friends about this and see if we should do about that, and if that story is true. Because I'd want to get the story confirmed. I'd want to ask the family, look, did that really happen? Has he really been depriving you of respect and excluding you from any sort of respect that you deserve as human beings? Maybe they don't deserve it, but, I think it's the most beneficial thing to do to treat people with respect. I think you would agree, right? So therefore, I think I would confirm the story first, and then I might talk to him about it and bring the family over and maybe say, look, you really hurt these kids, Their sense of identity, could be really harmed, and they could move on later in their life and feel really bad about themselves, and maybe they might even, want to get back at you and be violent or something. And then how would you feel, It's just having more concern for people, I don't feel like that's invasive. He doesn't have to let me in on his property. The family doesn't have to let me in on their property. No one has to let me in on their house. I might ask you, where does he work? Maybe I can talk to him there, or maybe I'll just let the thing go. If I can't get anywhere, I'm not going to struggle with it. I'm just going to let it go. Because it's one family, hopefully he doesn't do it anywhere else. If he does, then I can say, look, he not only did it to this family, but he did it to this family too. Let's try to stop this before something happens. I'm really worried. And at least let's talk to him. We don't have to shut him. We don't have to ostracize him. We don't have to do any of that really last resort stupid shit, okay? Let's just talk to him. Let's hear him out. Let's hear his side of the story and what happened and see, what he says. And that's all it is. I'm just trying to increase understanding in society. So you keep claiming that I care about what other people think. That's not the point. You're missing the point. The point is that I think culture matters, and that I think when people group together and have certain ideas and norms and values about what society should look like and what their lives should be, that I think it's important to recognize those groups and individuals within those groups. Of course, individuals are the basis of groups and always should be treated as such. I'm sure I think you'd agree with that. Maybe not, but I think you would. It's not about what other people think. It's having a deeper understanding for people, a deeper respect and concern for people, trying to make sure that people aren't excluded unnecessarily, aren't deprived unnecessarily. There's always going to be inequality in the world, in whatever way you want to say it. We can get into egalitarianism later. There's always going to be inequality in the world. I don't know why you think. Or no, I don't know why I said that. I was thinking about a different topic, excuse me. I don't know why you think that I care so much about what other people think. It's not about what they think, it's what they do, or it's the pretense of what they could do. Racists don't tend to be nonviolent. And I don't know where you're getting your history lessons where you think that lynchings happened more to white people throughout history than black people, or in a certain time when most lynchings happened. It still wasn't a big deal compared to something like heart disease. How can you miss a point so flatly, dude? Okay, heart disease wasn't a big deal in comparison to polio in the 1940s. Does that make heart disease not a big deal? Come on. I know you said that they're horrific and they shouldn't have happened and stuff like that, but then you say, they're not as big of a deal as people try to make it. And you basically say racism isn't a big deal anymore. And it's like, wow, care to back that up? Because I'd be really interested in why you think that. No? Because you don't. You don't back that up. You just say, racism isn't a big deal anymore. And then you move on. It's like, whoa, dude, that was a huge statement. I don't care if anyone agrees or disagrees with you. Even coming from someone who disagrees with you, dude, I think that was a huge statement to make, and you should back it up with something. Besides the fact that heart disease outnumbers the lynchings. That's not exactly persuasive. Again, that's like saying cancer doesn't, or that's like saying heart disease doesn't matter because cancer kills on average thousands more people than it does. Okay, relative to cancer, heart disease isn't as important, but it's still important by itself, or compared to something like, I don't know, shark attacks, lynchings are important. Lynchings are important. Remember, kids, lynchings are important. Lynchings are a sign of a troubled past of America and all around the world. I mean, lynchings didn't just happen in America. Slavery didn't just happen in America. It happened all over the world, and it's still happening now. I don't know why you think racism isn't a big deal anymore, but maybe that's because you think racism is lynchings. I think that's the sense I get from you. But racism isn't just lynchings. It's a systematic perception of people who are of a different race being inferior to you, or in some way assuming certain qualities about them because they are a certain race. So, for instance, you'd say blacks on average commit more crimes. And, that depends on what you define as a crime. That depends on what you define as black people, because there are different sorts of black. You could be talking about mulattoes, or you could be talking about black. Or you could be relying on faulty statistics, or blah, blah, blah. And then, you go from there to say, well, blacks are just more naturally invasive than whites are. And then I might say, look, dude, that sounds sort of racist or bigoted. I don't know that you are racist or bigot, and if you're not, let's talk about this. Let's see why you aren't. But maybe I'd be too pissed to say it anyway. And you say exclusion would be rare, as in racist exclusion. Why? Is there some big anti-racist movement in the libertarian movement that I wasn't aware of? Because I don't think there is. But you're saying this on the basis that racism doesn't matter anymore. But racism is a systematic belief. It's not just lynchings. It's not just physical violence. Objectionable behavior isn't just physical violence, and that's your problem. You're making things too narrow. You have coercion in a really narrow sense. Ironically, libertarians or libertarians like you, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but just as an identifying thing, have coercion in a really narrow sense. Unless it directly affects you in some physical sense or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or it's not important enough to get involved with. Or it's, I don't know, the only response you could possibly have to it is violence. But that's stupid. You can just try to influence ideas and norms in the general community or culture. So I don't know why exclusion would be rare. You're probably only saying this because you don't think racism is a big deal anymore, which is a huge claim that you didn't really back up, except by saying that heart disease is more important than lynchings. Which, again, for the third time, that's not a convincing argument. You're going to have to try again. I only laughed because that sounds like an answering machine or something. Please try again. Please hold. Yeah, so I don't know that exclusion would be rare, or racial exclusion would be rare. We don't know that. And I don't think anarchism would be a perfect world at all. I think it's a constant, ever vigilant sort of thing for liberty. Absolutely. I mean, Thomas Jefferson was just spot on with this quote: "Vigilance is the price of eternal vigilance is the price of liberty," or something like that. I mean, it's a classic quote by Jefferson, and it's just so right. It's so true, I think. And even if things don't directly affect me, even if that family with the black children, that were really upsetted by that guy who was acting racist towards them and calling them names and insinuating that they should be feel ashamed of who they are. Even if it doesn't directly affect me in a physical sense, it directly affects me right here. I know how cliche that is. I have Asperger's. I'm introverted. Again, I'm not saying that to disorder drop or whatever, instead of name drop, disorder drop. But I know it's cliche to say it, but it hits me right here. Or more realistically right here. But it makes me feel bad for them that they'd have to live in such a society or world where they would be told that who they are is disgusting. And I'm sure, to some degree or another, that is going to have to exist in the world. I'm not for abolishing that. I'm not for using violence against people who think that, unless they start using violence, or unless there's a good reason to think that they are going to use violence. They've made threats, or they verbally said that they're going to attack other people, or whatever. Even then, I would be hasty to use. I wouldn't be hasty to use violence. I'm not a very violent person. I don't like violence. I'm not a pacifist, but I would like to consider myself philosophically a pacifist, or in the abstract, I wish I could be a pacifist, but it's not realistic. So yeah, I think you have an idea of coercion in a very narrow sense. Now you talk about positive rights. You say, well, you don't talk about it, but some leftists have. Again, irrelevant. I don't know why you bring up, quote unquote, some leftists have blah blah blah, and then say, oh, but then I have a problem with this. But who cares? It's not my position, so why are you bringing it up? You even said multiple times, look, I'm not saying you have this position, but other leftists have this position. If I don't have the position, bro, don't bring it up. It's not relevant. I'm trying, keyword trying, to only bring up things that I think you believe. I really am, because I don't want to straw man you, and I want to have a good conversation with you about all this. But we're not going to have a good conversation about this if you keep bringing up subjects that I don't even believe in. Now, that said, I have mixed views on positive rights. I'm kind of for and against positive rights. Now, hear me out. I'm not for positive rights in the sense that you have an obligation to hire people. That's not the sort of positive rights I have. There are different notions of positive rights. Libertarians, especially right-wing libertarians, seem to have a specific conception of positive rights that only one person who talked about positive rights has actually said. I don't remember their name. But I do think that there is a sort of positive rights that is... there is a sort of way that it's compatible with libertarianism, possibly. Now, I want to look for it because I don't... Well, I don't know if it's in here or not. Yeah, I like more positive liberty than positive rights. It's defined as having the power and resources to fulfill one's own potential, as opposed to negative liberty, which is freedom from external restraint, which is really what you're talking about. You're not even talking about positive rights. You're talking about you're talking about positive rights. I like positive liberty, and I'll put that in the description. But yeah, I kind of like positive liberty because I think really people should have the power and resources and material conditions necessary to better build up their lives. But that doesn't mean we have some obligation to give it to them, or they can force other people through government to do that, or on the individual level. But anyway, just look it up. I kind of like the idea of positive rights, or positive liberties, I guess I should be calling them. But I think there's a better foundation than what's usually brought up. So we kind of agree that there's problems with it. But that's not a position I have. I don't believe people have an obligation to get work. And I wouldn't say that just because someone doesn't want black people that they're necessarily racist. The black people in the community just might not be the right people for the job for whatever reason. I mean, that's possible. It's not very likely, but it's possible. You say again, if you care that much about what others think after you talk about positive rights, and you actually said what other people think after you talked about exclusion would be rare. Again, really, just stop bringing this point up. It's not about what other people think. Like, that's not the point. It has to do with what other people think, but that's not the point. The point is that culture matters. The point is that ideas, when grouped together, can bring about certain norms within groups and communities and teams and whatever, and it can have an effect on the marketplace, which means certain things will be bought and sold that otherwise might not be bought and sold, and might be traded that otherwise might not be traded, and some things might hurt people and some things might not, and that might eventually lead to aggression. I mean, it's just, for me, it's a natural, not a natural, I don't like the word nature, but it's just a progressive thing that tends to happen a lot, is what I'll say. You know, I just don't know what else to say to you. It's not about what other people think. I can't stress that enough. That's not the main point. Yes, it has to do with what other people think. Obviously, racism is something people think about, you know? But you care about what other people think within the realm of government, right? I mean, you care that people think about government because government is violence, right? Well, the point isn't that people are thinking about it. That's not what bothers you. The problem is that people are liable to act on it, and that government is a real and tangible problem. That's the same thing for me with racism and other cultural issues. There are real social problems that people can act on to the detriment of other people. That's why I care about it, not just because they're thinking about it. You know, they can think about it till kingdom come, which it's not going to come because I'm an atheist and I don't believe in that. But anyway, they can think about it all they want and never act on it, and I'll be none the wiser. But if they act on it, and act on it in ways that I think are pretty dangerous towards a free society, then I'm going to act on it in turn. It doesn't make me nosy. It just means I care about how other people feel, and so on. I don't think you say it's a dangerous ideology. I think agnosticism is a lot worse. Not agnosticism, apathetic. Your apathetic tendencies or full-on belief is worse. And, the agnostic, the apathetic, I'm never going to stop doing this, man. I apologize. It's not the left libertarian position to be apathetic about culture. We think culture is important. We think it has a big impact on markets, therefore we should care about it. We think it has a big impact on liberty, therefore we should care about it. These are all libertarian reasons to think about culture, no matter what the situation. I don't care if you're an anarcho-capitalist society, anarcho-communist society, a mutualist society, a primitivist society. It doesn't matter. Culture is important. Wherever you have human beings, culture will be important. Unless it's top-down controlled, distorted, filtered, corrupted by the state and other oppressive institutions, culture is going to be matter, and it's going to be beautiful if we can get it together right. And just because I think there's a certain conception of right doesn't mean I think that, what was I saying? Sorry, I was reading something for a second and then I forgot what I was saying. Well, anyway, I've lost my train of thought. I just think agnosticism is a lot more dangerous. I think that, well, I can't, I'm just going to keep repeating the same thing I've already told you, that culture matters. If you don't think culture matters in an anarchist society, we can have a discussion about that. And I'm curious why you think culture doesn't matter. Maybe you think culture matters. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, you know. Maybe you think culture does matter, but not to the extent that I do. That's cool. I mean, we can have different cultural beliefs. I'm sure you do have some cultural beliefs. You must. I mean, you can't just be completely apathetic to culture, can you? I mean, I can't imagine that. But maybe that's because I'm a leftist, you know, a libertarian leftist. Anyway, you say I'm puritanical, that I think I'm going to save people, that it's immature. I don't know why you say this, man. I'm calling you apathetic, but that's because you clearly are apathetic. Because you said explicitly that you don't care. Keyword, don't care. Whether someone writes a homophobic book talking about how homophobia is terrible and a sin and whatever else, that's apathy. And that shows to me an apathy about culture. Because that's what it has to do with. Culture. So I'm not telling you that you're like a do-nothing, or that you just want, if people were being oppressed, that you would not save them, quote-unquote, or that, you know, you're immature. You know, you're immature. No, you're immature. You know, I'm not doing that stuff to you, so I don't want you to do that stuff to me. Golden rule and all that, bro. So I don't know. Just cut the crap. Don't call me puritanical. Don't call me. Don't act like I'm trying to be people's savior, because I don't think that shit is funny. I'm not immature. My ideas are not immature, and it really irritates me that you would call me immature, or my beliefs immature, because of presuppositions you have about my belief that haven't even been that well argued for in some respects, I'd say. And I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just trying to be honest, a little bit brutally honest, because this kind of pisses me off. I'm not puritanical. I don't think everyone should be like I am. I don't want everyone to be like I am. I like diversity. That's kind of the idea behind multiculturalism. We're going to save you? No, I don't want to save anyone. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not going to come to the door of racists and say, hey, embrace anti-racism. It's great, man. It's good for your health. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I have a much more nuanced opinion than that, you know? It depends on what sort of racist they are, whether they are actively being a racist, whether they're actively trying to diminish other people and their feelings about themselves or their sense of identity. And by the way, I know you're probably going to say, well, that's subjective, and no one can really guess that. Look, if you have a family that has children crying about what someone said to them about who they are, I don't care who you are, that's not subjective. That seems pretty clear cut to me that something wrong is going on, or morally objectionable is going on. And it doesn't need to be about physical aggression for me to morally object to it. You know, I just completely reject that premise as a left libertarian and as a thick libertarian. Immature? No, it's not immature. I feel like it's actually a much more mature approach, because it, on the one hand, completely likes pluralism, but it's not a blind pluralism. It's trying to be in the middle. We want a plurality and a freedom of association for all people, all communities, but we don't want it to the point where a bunch of fascists can come together and start non-violently organizing and reinforcing authoritarian norms that start making people believe in the state again, you know? And I know that seems unlikely, but the fact that you can even conceive of such a situation points out flaws in your arguments, I think, because, you know, if people can do that, if I can so easily come up with a situation that doesn't violate property norms or violence or whatever, but it obviously is problematic either way, that means that there's a problem with what you're saying. And I think it's more mature to recognize that than to ignore it. I won't call you immature for anything you've said, because that would be hypocritical, and because I don't want to name call. I know you're not calling me immature, you're calling my ideas immature, but I put good value on my values. I identify with them for a reason, because I find them important to me. So when you call them immature, you're basically insulting me. And maybe you'll chalk that up to me being too emotional about it, but I don't really care. Now you say just let people be. Okay, again, to an extent, I will just let people be. That's the whole idea of anarchism. But on the other side of things, I don't want to just let those fascists be who are self-organizing under supposedly anarchist principles, who aren't violating property norms in the surrounding communities and aren't hurting anyone. But when they go under the flag of the fascism, fascism, I'm going to be a bit skeptical of your idea of just let people be. I'm not just letting the fascists be. Bash the fash, is what I have to say to that. And that's a joke. That's a joke, son. You see, bash the fash is just a joke from. There's a page on Facebook called Mutualism. It's just a group, and there's a guy on there who says fash all the time, and he says bash the fash, and everybody really likes it. Anyway, I'm just joking. I'm not really going to bash their skulls in. Maybe. Anyway, sorry, that was probably really creepy. It's not hurting you. Well, yeah, it kind of is. Again, it does hurt me. And I wish you wouldn't diminish the pain that it can cause people to have their own identity diminished. And again, it may be subjective to you, but if you talk to these people, you find out it's a very real thing. And that's what I'm stressing, talking to these people, understanding them. No one's entitled. Yeah, I'm kind of, no one's entitled to be treated a certain way. Or I'm not sure what you were saying with no one's entitled, because I just left it at no one's entitled. So maybe I won't say much. But in general, the idea of entitlement I am kind of skeptical of. But my argument isn't that people are entitled to be treated decently. I just think it works the best. I don't know that you could really argue that people are entitled to be treated equally or the same or whatever. Not that you really could, but you get what I mean. Fairly, decently, whatever. Like human beings. I don't know if any of that gets through to you, but no, again, I'm not calling you thick-headed. I'm just saying I might be phrasing this wrong. But in any case, you go on about how I think it's so evil that hierarchy exists. You're moralizing. I don't think it's so evil. I just think it's not preferable. I'm not morally against bosses. I think sometimes bosses tend to reinforce things like subjugation, deprivation, take advantage of vulnerable people. But in a freed market, I doubt they'd be the same kind of bosses. And even if they weren't the same kind of bosses, I just don't prefer that type of relationship. I like working with my fellow workers in decentralized groups. So no, I don't think it's so evil. Stop overly moralizing the arguments. Think the right thing. You make it sound like I want everyone to think the right thing or think the same thing. That's not true. I like diversity. I'll celebrate diversity any goddamn day of the week. But I don't think there should be uniformity, as I don't think there should be blind pluralism or diversity. I think we should keep an eye on what people do. Not an eye on what people do. But we should pay attention to what people are saying and doing with their lives in as much as it affects us in some powerful way. If somebody kicks a can down a street, and thus pollutes, I'm not going to go up to them and bash them in the face or something. I'm just going to pick it up, walk over to them and say, hey, why don't you throw that away instead of kicking it around on the ground, That's not being nosy. I'm just trying to take care of the environment, I'm not a big environmentalist, by the way. I just have some sympathies towards caring about the environment. I know that's weird. I'm a hippie. I'm a dirty commie. I deserve to die, blah, blah, blah. I'm just joking. I know you wouldn't make those arguments. I'm just joking. But I do care about the environment. I actually picked up a Mountain Dew bottle today because I was just thinking about something one of my comrades said in the libertarian movement about, people who support markets should support, not having a polluted environment, because how can we enjoy the marketplace if we can't even breathe or go outside? It's a good point, I think. And even though I don't think recycling does much, you can watch the Penn and Teller episode on recycling. I don't think it does much. I've never been a big fan of it myself. And I do think a lot of the environmentalists are overzealous, religious idiots. Well, I shouldn't say religious, because there are some good, smart, religious people out there. And I think I think that actually ruins the good name of religion, if there ever was a good name. Anyway, this is a tangent. Anyway, I'm just trying to say I'm not a nutso Algorian environmentalist. I just kind of care about the environment, and I'd calmly say, hey, why don't you pick that up and throw it away? If you don't, I will. Whatever, I'll try to get other people together so we can keep the community clean, and so people can have a better environment. What's wrong with that? Is that nosy because I want the environment to be clean? If people don't want me walking on their lawn because it's their property and they don't want me cleaning up, I'll say, okay, I won't do it then, But if it's to the extent where they're causing pollution just from all the trash, or they're causing discomfort for other people, I might knock on the door and say, hey, you're causing all of this discomfort. People are getting worried. They're concerned about you. They're concerned about their own health. If you don't stop, people might move out of the community. I'd really like to talk to you about this. That's not intrusive. I'm totally giving them the chance to say, nope, not interested. Close the door on me. And then I'll say, okay, how do we deal with this problem? We don't want to violate his property rights, but we don't want people to be discomforted by the pollution that's going on. And we don't want the environment to suffer either. Because if this amassed in different communities, it could be really harmful to the environment. So there's going to be balances. I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't think there's some de facto answer. Maybe we just got to try doing the message some other way. Or maybe we just got to, it's difficult because it's his property. He doesn't want us on it. And unless we can really prove that he's causing a notable harm to other people, then there's not much we could do about it, I suppose. But even so, I would want to talk to him and say, look, you're causing discomfort to other people. People are getting worried about you. They're worried about their own health and their children's health. Breathing in some of the fumes that you have on your lawn could prove detrimental. Some of the stuff that you're using on your vegetables is causing other vegetables to die. I think you should, give restitution for the vegetables. Be more careful and environmentally conscious. I don't think that's nosy. I think that's just being aware. You can call that nosiness if you want, but I just think that's being aware. Now, you're saying I'm making up ghosts. You say that what I believe in was the basis of collectivism and prohibition. Now, I don't even know where you get this from. This is astounding to me. First off, prohibition. What the hell? Prohibition came from overly zealous women and men who thought that somehow alcohol was a disease or a plague in society in America, and that they should use the government to regulate it. Now, I don't even think sexism and racism and homophobia and whatever else are plagues in America. I think there are certainly bad things that are notable in America and around the world, but they're not plagues, and we certainly don't need the government to do anything about that. So, yeah, none of the prohibitionists were left-libertarians. And I doubt any of their ideas shared any commonality. So, yeah. Collectivism. You're using it in the pejorative sense. I don't think there's anything wrong with believing in groups or collectives or emphasizing their importance. Although you probably think of collectivism as the collective rights over the individual rights, but I don't really think about it like that. If you really think about it like that, I guess I agree that collectivism is stupid. But again, I don't see how me caring about what other people do with their lives as coming from prohibition. In the general sense, okay, in the general sense I can see it, but when it plays out, no, because they wanted government. I don't want government. I don't want violence at all, if possible. I want the least amount of violence possible, which should be zero, honestly. So, yeah, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. So you said they are aggressing, or I think you're thinking about oh man, I see. I should have written out your sentences instead of just saying they are aggressing. I actually rewrote some parts of the script. It's a really skeleton script, but bare bones script, but sorry about that. I'm just trying to think. They are aggressing. Well, I don't remember what you were talking about when you said they are aggressing, but what I remember what I was going to say is that you're projecting your own presumptions onto me. I don't necessarily agree that people who oppose racism are necessarily aggressing or whatever. So moving on. So I think really, to take a break for a second for responding to you, you are really the epitome of a thin libertarian. And if you don't know what a thin and thick libertarian is, you should look up Charles Johnson's Libertarianism Through Thick and Thin. But you are just the epitome of it. I mean, there's no better example. I mean, there are probably, but you're a good example of thin libertarianism, and I don't like thin libertarianism. I don't like what you've been saying about it, or about your positions about culture and stuff. You call what I'm talking about intrusive and limiting people's freedoms. Well, the freedom to be a racist or a fascist isn't much of a freedom, honestly. It's not a freedom worth preserving. I don't know why you want to preserve the freedom to be a fascist or a racist or whatever. No, I'm not saying... Well, you don't even necessarily do, but you seem to be defending them in the sense that they have the right to be a racist if they want to, as long as they're not hurting other people. I'm sure that's basically what you would say verbatim. But I kind of disagree. They don't have a right to be anything. They don't have a right to be racist. They can be racist, but I'm going to recognize that if they're, being explicit about it and doing things that I feel harm the community or harm individuals, especially individuals, but also especially the community, I suppose. Yeah. You say also that it limits people... Well, I already said that. So I don't think it's intrusive. I don't think it's limiting people's freedom. I think it's being aware, and I think it's actually encouraging people's freedom to be more honest about who they are. It might even get the racist to be honest about who he is or she is, and maybe enter dialogue with the people that they seem to not like so much, and maybe things can be resolved. I'd really like to see that. That's something, mutual understanding is something I totally think should happen more. But that doesn't make me intrusive, because it'd only be intrusive if they didn't want me to. And I've already cleared up the misconception in your eyes, the misconception that you have, that you've said a few times, that I want to somehow be getting in everyone's business. But that's not true. If they don't want me to get involved, then I'll do my best to not. But I'll probably still bring it up to my other friends, and they'll make their own decisions about how they want to treat the racist. If they want to just ignore it, that's fine. If they want to shame him, that's fine. That's their own choice. I would probably say something like, look, dude, that's a little bit too far. You might not like black people, but that doesn't mean we have to kick him out of our lives permanently or whatever, or until he changes, or she, or whatever. So, again, I think these are misperceptions about my positions. Now, you say everyone's different. No shit. You're begging the question. How does that have anything to do with my argument? Obviously, everyone's different, but that's not the. You're making the same argument Rothbard did in Egalitarianism and Revolt Against Nature, which is an essay I skimmed once, and it was anyway. Egalitarianism is not Harrison Bergeron. I like that short story because it's really inventive and cool and fun to read, and it's a really great premise, but it's so fucking annoying that libertarians use it to make a case against egalitarianism, because egalitarianism is like libertarianism. It's just basically holding that equality is an important idea. What you think equality is and how you plan on getting that equality makes you a certain kind of egalitarian. But you're not like an egalitarian right off the bat. Like believing everyone's different doesn't make you not an egalitarian. You could still be an egalitarian. I think everyone's different, yet I believe in equality. I believe that people should be equal in their political authority and moral authority. You don't have any more right to demand money from me than I do from you. That's equal moral authority. So I don't really think you understand egalitarianism in the context that left libertarians talk about, and it's not the Harrison Bergeron sense. Please stop insinuating that it is. Equal partners. You talk about equal partners. You don't even know what that freaking means, I think. It's irritating to me because you don't even know what equality means. You don't define it ever. And actually, I talked about this in my first response to you, but you still didn't define equality. Now, sir, if you're going to keep prattling on about how bad equality is, define it, please. because you've not defined equality for me. I don't know how to continue the conversation from that's not egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is just a belief in equality as a good value to have in a society, and then how you want to get that sort of equality through certain means makes you a certain kind of egalitarian. From there, I don't know what to tell you, because you don't define equality. You just make it sound like the Harrison Bergeron type of equality. Now, you say that I'm basically correct about free markets and stuff like that. Thank you. I don't know that you are, but I appreciate that. You say my positions make you uncomfortable. Good. Sort of. It's good that they discomfort you because that's making you think. Clearly you've thought to some extent or another. I'm just kidding. It's made you think. It's made you think about a lot of the positions we've talked about. And that's good. So the uncomfort or the discomfort in one way is good. Causing discomfort with people is what I do, man. I'm an awkward son of a bitch. And if there's one thing in life I'm good at, it's being awkward and socially inept. So I don't know what to tell you about you being uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, that's nice. That doesn't refute my position. I may be emotional sometimes, but that doesn't mean I'm just going to take you saying you're uncomfortable at heart and say, oh, he's uncomfortable. I guess that means I'm wrong. No, I'm not going to do that. So stop bringing up that you're uncomfortable. I know that you're uncomfortable. You don't even have to tell me. I know you are. You have to be. That's why you keep making video responses. If you were perfectly at comfort, or even moderately comfortable, you wouldn't have made a 33-minute video response telling me how uncomfortable you are. So don't worry about it. Don't tell me you're uncomfortable. I know you're uncomfortable. But that's part of the discussion. I'm uncomfortable with I'm uncomfortable with some of your positions, and you're uncomfortable with some of mine. That's how we have discussions. So again, don't tell me you're uncomfortable. I know you're uncomfortable. You talk about me advocating one brotherhood of man. I never really talked about one brotherhood of man. I don't know where you got... I know where you got this idea from, but I don't know why you brought it up in relation to me, because I never brought it up. I just said I like the idea of solidarity. I never defined my terms, so you're just presuming what I mean, or you're just bringing up something I never even said. Either way, it's not that important. But sure, I support solidarity, though not per se, not this per se, not one brotherhood of man. I think that's impossible. And certainly not uniformity of thought or Puritanism, as you've already suggested. And I don't know why, it's bullshit. You certainly don't explain why one brotherhood of man is bullshit. You just kind of say, one brotherhood of man, it's bullshit. The end. You say there doesn't have to be solidarity. There doesn't have to be this. Well, duh. I'm not prescribing that there has to be solidarity everywhere and anywhere. I'd like solidarity to be among people, but you don't have to feel solidarity if you don't want, bro. I'm fine with the community just having solidarity with each other. And I'm not forcing it. I just want to educate people and say, look, it's good if we create networks towards each other and give each other mutual aid and stuff like that and support each other. So you said, I don't even know my neighbors. Well, you don't think that's a problem? Like, you don't have the ability to know that many people. I doubt that, I bet you could know your neighbors if you wanted to. If you don't want to, that's cool. I'm not going to force you. The community that I want to see isn't like Meet Your Neighbor Day, or there might be. I don't know. Maybe that'd actually be good. I don't know. But, maybe there'd be a community event and everyone from the community is welcome and a bunch of people meet up and get to know each other better, and, that's voluntary. I don't see what problem you have with that. What's wrong with individuals getting to know each other better as a part of a larger whole? They're not worshiping the larger whole. They're not saying the community is all that and a bag of chips. What does a bag of chips have to do with all that anyway? So yeah, I think it's kind of a problem you don't know your neighbors. But then again, I don't really know any of the neighbors in this apartment complex that I live in. But that's because this is my Nana's apartment complex. I don't really have any big interest in getting to know the people who live here. It's mostly for retired people and stuff, not people my age. So I kind of have an excuse. I don't know what excuse you have. If you have a good one, I'd love to hear it. But I don't know. I think getting to know your neighbors can actually be a pretty revolutionary act, because it's creating social bonds with other people. And if you can create the social bonds such that it starts creating counterpower or alternative power to what the state is producing as a form of power, then you're actually, engaging in revolutionary activity in a very minimal, small way. You're creating counter and alternative power to the state by fostering alternative social associations. So, yeah, I don't know that you should know your neighbors, but I don't see the problem with it either. You say next, for you to care. God, I hate this. And I feel like I shouldn't even say anything, because now I am a hypocrite now. By now I am a hypocrite, because I've complained about you saying the same thing over and over again. So now I'm being a hypocrite. So I apologize for being a hypocrite. But I get it. I get it, dude. You think I care too much about what other people say, what other people think and say. I get it. God damn it, I get it. Just stop saying it, please. I get that you think I'm being nosy and intrusive and all this shit, which it's not true, or I'll object to it. But just stop. Make different points, or make them in different ways at least. Instead, you just say, for you to care. You've said it like 3 times now, or 4, or more. It just gets annoying, man. I know I'm repeating a few lines. Maybe it's just impossible not to repeat a few lines within the span of time. If that's your excuse, totally understand. I'm going through the same thing right now. That's pretty meta, but anyway. So I totally get that. If that's your excuse, okay. But you really emphasize this, and you already emphasized it enough. I don't know why you keep repeating this. Because it's such an important point? Okay, then just say everything you have to say the first few times and then leave it at that. Don't keep repeating it. It gets annoying. It actually makes me feel like you're talking down to me. Like you think I don't understand what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Stop saying it. Next up, you say everyone's a little bit racist. What? Did you seriously just make that argument? Everyone's a little bit racist? Do you know that's a song? Like, that's why I think this is so silly. You know that this is a song on a play. It's called... Oh, I don't know what it's called. One of my ex-girlfriends told me about this. Avenue Q. Avenue Q. I knew it was something with a Q. I can't believe I actually remembered it. I didn't look it up. I was about to, but I didn't. It's Avenue Q. They have this song called Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. And I can't believe you're making that argument. I guess it depends on what you define as racist, doesn't it? I mean, let's be honest. You could be defining racist so broadly that it doesn't even matter. Wow, I can just tell that it's already been like 30 minutes alone by now. Wow, okay. I'm not gonna speed up or anything. I'm just gonna keep going until I'm done. So he says, if you're going to associate, or you say, if you're going to associate with certain groups, look, are we talking about my ideal society or today? I don't know any of those associations you talked about, and I don't know them. I don't know any of the people in there. They've never talked to me. No one I've ever talked about this to thinks, oh yeah, he must support those groups, because you're just being a presumptuous idiot if you are doing that. Maybe that's not the right word, because that's basically me calling you a presumptuous idiot, which you're not. But you might be. I think you're sort of being one, in a way, or you're encouraging that sort of thing. Being a presumptuous idiot, I mean. Please don't. Because you're obviously not talking about my ideal society. You're just talking about in today's terms. And I don't even accept some anti-racist associations because I think some of them are bullshit. Like the Southern Law poverty thing. They from what I hear from one person I've heard, I actually looked them up a little bit. They don't seem that bad on the Wikipedia page, but I guess they use police for a lot of their acts. So they might be anti-racist, but they use the cops. I don't support that. And obviously, when I say I'm an anarchist and I'm anti-racist, then people aren't going to say, oh, he must like the Southern Poverty Law Center. They use cops all the time. Oh, wait, he's an anarchist. He probably doesn't support them. See? I mean, it's as simple as that. Really is. Now, you talk about all these things as premier anti-racist groups. I don't know if they're premier anti-racist groups. I guess they're so premier I've never freaking heard of them from a lot of my anti-racist friends. Everyone's kind of anti-racist. It's a stupid term, I'll admit. Calling someone being anti-racist is stupid because who really is pro-racist? Well, I guess there are. No, that's not true. Everyone is a little. You know what? Everyone's a little anti-racist. How about that? Everyone's a little anti-racist. You're gonna say everyone's a little bit racist. I'm gonna say everyone's a little bit anti-racist. So there you go. Suck it. Suck it. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. See, I'm so bad with social cues that I assume everybody else is, and so I don't want you to get mad at me for making jokes at your expense. Because I'll feel bad about it if you like get really angry. I feel bad enough when you, when I felt like you felt that you were being talked down to about Benjamin Tucker. I felt bad. I was like, oh shit, did I come across? Did it come across as condescending? Because shit, man, I didn't mean it to come across like that. Because, you know, I totally respect that you're willing to engage in a debate. You know, makes you a lot better than most of the people in the world. I'll tell you that. But I don't think your engagement is fair for the most part. But you're still engaging. I gotta respect that. So you say I'm exaggerating and empowering these associations by being anti-racist. No, not really. Again, I don't associate myself with those things. And no one has ever associated me with them. And people usually take me on my own terms and don't just assume that I like associations like you're talking about. So I don't think that I'm exaggerating or empowering anything. You tell me to write a novel. No thanks. I'm not going to spend a year or something just so I can get the anti-racist message out. That seems to kind of intellectualize, and I actually have a series on anti-intellectualism. I won't put the link in the description, but you can check it out on my my videos. And yeah, but anyway, I think you're overtly intellectualizing you know, the process of being against something. I don't need to write a novel to do that. That's bullshit. I can just say something against it. I can organize a group against it. I can encourage people to be against it. I don't need to write a novel, you know. That seems silly. I know that's not your only solution, but as a standalone solution, I'm criticizing it. If you don't think it's a standalone, you don't, because you say use media in general. Okay, cool. But I'm not going to write a novel or a movie unless I really want to hammer on the issue. But that'd only be if the issue was really difficult. But I only think that, and I keep saying only, sorry, but you know, damn it. The only thing, I think, fuck me, right, is that, you know, we only need to organize small groups, or we just need to encourage people to be better, or we just need to put social pressures. I don't think we need to make movies and, like, influence entire, like, you know, townships and communities and or a multitude of communities or whatever. Then you bring up the neighbor situation. I've already addressed this, but just to refresh your mind, no, I'd be a lot more nuanced than that. I think you're treating me unfairly. Now, where does all that lead? Well, spilled some of that. Anyway, where does all this lead? Well, a better culture, I think. A better world, a more free world. You can disagree, but we're never going to get there anyway in a lifetime, so there's not much point in disagreeing about it. You say this will eventually violate the NAP, or lead to violations of it. Because... No, really, because why? You never explain why, you just say it would lead to violations of the NAP. I guess you just take it that it's so obvious that it would, that you don't have to explain, but it's not obvious to me why anything I've said would lead to violations of the NAP. So, again, you talk about cooperatives, no evidence it works. I'm going to put in the description evidence of, you're not actually providing any evidence that it doesn't work, but here's my evidence that it does work in the description. So I'm actually going out of my way to not only dispute your point, but actually provide links, when you did nothing. So, go me. Anyway, you say egalitarianism is retarded. Great argument, bro. Like, no, what? Huh? Like, if I said libertarianism is retarded, wouldn't you say why? You wouldn't just say, oh, okay, I get it. Libertarianism is retarded. Like, you wouldn't say that, would you? Like, I understand, like I totally get this was a 33-minute video, and maybe by now, you're just, like, so tired of the arguments that, like, you don't even want to defend them. But if you're not going to defend them, then don't make them. Because then it just makes people say things like, what? Like, why would you even say that? You don't even explain. So don't question beg, please. If you're not going to defend your statements, don't make them. I know that's harsh, but that's my position. You say states are ostensibly egalitarian. How? How in the world are they ostensibly egalitarian in any sense? States inherently create inequality. The only equality they reinforce is an equality in slavery. That's no kind of meaningful equality that an egalitarian would support. Yeah, so you say this. You say something about exercising authority, but again, I did put the context in there. I forget. You talk about it after ostensibly egalitarian. How ostensibly egalitarian the state is. By the way, you don't explain why that is. So again, baseless assertion. So I'll just move on. So you say you think there's something inherently wrong with. No. I don't think there's something inherently wrong with the worker-boss relation. I mean, there might be. There might be certain traits of it that I inherently don't like. But that's not my argument necessarily, anyway. I just don't think it's as practical as the cooperative. That's my argument. It's a preferential thing. I'm not going to force it on you, bro. I don't know why I keep saying bro. I don't typically say bro this much. Bro. There's going to be some hierarchy no matter what. I believe I already clarified this and said that I agreed with you, so that's a pointless statement to make. You say individuality or individual rights, is what libertarianism is all about. Well, that sort of sounds like an appeal to a majority to me, which is stupid for a libertarian to make because, you don't believe, you're skeptical of group rights or you're skeptical of you're against majoritarian democracy, I assume. So I don't know why you make an appeal to the majority. Yeah, a lot of libertarians seem to think that libertarianism is just individualism with an emphasis on liberty, or it's just about individual rights, or it's just about this and that, but that doesn't mean they're right, and you've given me no good reason to think that, other than a lot of people believe it. Okay, a lot of people believe in the state. Are they therefore justified in believing the state? Like, again, another baseless assertion. You gotta defend your statements, dude. I can't really work with this. What am I supposed to say? No, libertarianism means this because such and such. Well, then you've never really defended your statement, and I'm here left on the short end of the stick defending my statement, even though you never defended yours. So why do you even, why should I accept that definition just because a lot of people use it? That's just not a good enough reason by itself. Maybe you could add a few other reasons, and it might be more plausible, but even then I might not be convinced. So we agree on a lot. I agree that we agree on a lot. Shit, that means we agree a little bit more than we thought originally. Oh boy. We are different on emphasis. That's true. You say that egalitarianism, anti-hierarchy, anti-racism, universal brotherhood, boycotting businesses, blah, 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 blah. Again, you don't know what egalitarianism means. Stop pretending you do. Anti-hierarchy, we're not anti-hierarchy. We're skeptical of hierarchy. Anti-racism, well, not in the conventional militaristic, we're going to bash your skull in sense. I think you have misperceptions about that. Universal brotherhood, I never brought that up. No left libertarian I ever have heard of ever said that. Boycotting businesses, everybody does that. Anarcho-capitalists, I'm sure, would do that too. Yeah. Different sorts of racism. There are different sorts of racism. They exist now. The drug war. Oh my god, the drug war. You know how much disproportionately blacks are put in prison by the police? Lynching? Really? You're being narrow. Again, with your definition of racism and coercion. The drug war, dude. Drug war is a huge race thing. Huge race thing. You can't even deny that. As a libertarian, you can't deny that. You know that blacks are disproportionately picked off by the police due to racial prejudices in society. And racial prejudices... sorry, I can't talk. Racial prejudices... and that still wasn't pronounced that well, that the police have and that the system currently has. The prisons. Oh my god, the prisons. This is racism, dude. Blatant, systematic racism. Now you could say it won't matter once the state is gone, but my point isn't to debate that. My point is when you were talking about racism isn't a big deal. The drug war, the police, the prison industrial complex. Lynching? Really? Again, you're being narrow. Just look at the drug war, dude. Look at the blacks as it compared to the whites. Look at who the police arrest compared to the whites. Look who they usually oppress, minorities, as opposed to the whites. Look at who's in the prisons. Who is in the prisons? The new Jim Crow law, dude. It's blacks. Lots and lots of blacks. 1 in 4, I've heard the statistic before, 1 in 4 black teenagers, 18 to 24 or something like that, will be in prison at least at one point in their life. 1 in 4. Out of the millions of black people in America. That's huge. You don't think racism has something to do with that? You don't think there's anything to do with race or culture? Nothing? You can't be serious. I don't even know how I could take you seriously if you told me that. Like, you don't think the drug war is at all about racism, or the police isn't at all racist, or the prison industrial complex isn't at all racist. You just can't. There's no... I don't know, man. I don't want to make baseless assertions either, but I feel like these things speak for themselves, and clearly do, at least from my position, and maybe you had that too, but I think you were wrong to think that, and I think I'm right to think it in this case. So, like, again, or not again, but just to clarify, making a statement all by itself isn't a bad thing if it's clear from other things that you've said, or things that you assume the other person knows would help them understand. Now here, I assume that you know what goes on with the police. You know what goes on with the drug war. You know what goes on in the prisons. I assume you know that. Like, for God's sakes, Reason TV knows this shit. You know? Anybody knows this. This is common knowledge. So I'm just going to assume you know it, and then are going to backtrack, or not backtrack, you're going to correct yourself and say, look, okay, racism is a problem, but I think it's overstated. Okay. Then we can talk about that. But if you say racism isn't a big deal anymore, when these three things exist in society, the drug war, the police, the prison industrial complex, we're going to have serious issues, man. And you're going to really need to explain to me how they do not thrive off race-based assumptions. Stupid race-based assumptions. So why the emphasis? Why the emphasis on all this leftism? Well, I mean, in a word, or two, or three, 5, or whatever, we just think that these things are important for a libertarian society, and or more specifically, a free society. That's really why the emphasis. We think the leftism is really important because it can yield better results for a free society. I mean, that's really it. But you say, oh, this is kind of disconcerting, or whatever. Well, yeah, it's kind of disconcerting that people would block off sections of society or So explaining left-libertarianism is difficult to you because you don't really understand us, I think, and you don't understand a lot of the conceptions that we come from. I don't really blame you. It's not really widely understood anyway, and it's not, that's the point of doing this response to you, is really trying to explain left libertarianism and the positions. So regular businesses, well, we don't support regular businesses of the day, right? State privilege and all that, right? I mean, racist business owners aren't regular, and even you said as much, because racism isn't a problem. So what gives? I mean, first you said racism isn't a problem, but second, you're all worried about the racists and them being boycotted against. But you just said that it wouldn't happen anyway. So why are you concerned? What's the deal? So conceited, you accuse me of being conceited. Again, with the name calling, I don't understand it. I don't know why you stoop to that level. I'm not going to stoop to the level, except to call name calling. I'm going to insult name calling by saying that name calling is wrong. I'm being an idiot, basically. But I'm not conceited. We all have our preferences, and up to a point, I'm willing to allow people to live and let live. But I do take culture seriously, and so, yeah. So I do support solving problems without violating the NAP. Community organizing and context keeping means we constantly self-organize voluntarily under anarchist principles, and we do so with the consent of all who are involved. If we want to get involved in a certain thing that people are doing in the community that we don't like, we should strategically organize. You say you would be worried about a society where there are millions and millions of left libertarians. Man, just the sentence of saying millions and millions of left libertarians, I've never even heard that before. It just made me smile. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna, whatever. Because I mean, it just fills my heart, or it warms my heart a little bit to hear even hear someone say millions and millions of left libertarians. Like, that's never. I don't even think anyone's ever said that sentence, and I've been a left libertarian for a while now. So yeah, but besides that, I know you'd be worried. I got that you're worried. You're worrisome. You being worried does not impress me. It does not prove that I'm wrong. It just proves that we have different opinions. But people already knew that. Yeah. So you say from a libertarian position or point of view, before you even go any further, yeah, yours is a right-wing libertarian position, and it's not the de facto position, as we can see by just having this debate. Clearly, it's not I'm losing my train of thought here. So clearly, it's not the only form of libertarianism out there. And left libertarian to basically end where I began. Left libertarians don't claim a monopoly on libertarianism. Neither do right-wing libertarians. So stop trying to claim one. Or neither should right libertarians. I'm sure some left libertarians try to act like it. That's their problem, not a problem with left libertarians. That's a personal issue. You say a lot of this stuff is more than semantics. Completely agree. I'm glad somebody finally said that. You said I like to talk. Yes, I noticed. 33 minutes. I told you to keep it short, or this is actually what I've been meaning to tell you the whole time. I don't understand why we're having this discussion. Actually, you told me you told the audience in general when you first started, you weren't interested in a long discussion about left libertarianism, or that you didn't really want to get into it. But here we are. So you either changed your mind or you're contradicting yourself or something. I mean, it's not a big deal, even if you are even if you have changed your mind. Oh, by the way, let me explain something. The crosses behind me are not mine. I'm an atheist. My grandmother used to be religious, and that's her stuff. It's her house that I live in, so I don't mess with her stuff and take it down just because I'm an atheist. Respect property rights, bro. Even if I think religion tends to promote bad ideas. See? So there you go, right there. Bam. Real world example of left libertarian respecting property rights. Yeah. Anyway, so you said if you got to the end, congratulations. Well, congratulate me twice, bitch, because I got to the end twice. That's right. I not only watched your video once, I watched it twice. And then even the second time, I didn't do the video response until now, which was a few days after. So I actually should have watched it a third time, but I just said fuck that because some of the things you said, man, really irritated me, and I didn't want to be irritated again. No offense. And I'm sure some of the things I've said here will irritate you. So this has probably been the longest video I've ever done. Congratulations for making me do it. This is an hour or more of my life I'll never get back, and you will never get back either. Good job, Lengthen You Neither. Good job. Alright, so anyway, this has been a good discussion. I hope we continue it. I don't know how we'll go from here, because, I mean, if you respond to me, it'll be like a 2-hour response. And then I'll have to do like a 4-hour response, and then eventually we'll just say, fuck it, it's getting too long. So if you want to end the conversation here, I'm totally cool with that. I understand it's getting a bit ridiculous, even now, at just an hour. If you want to just make a shortened response or another half-an-hour response, I'll try to whip up a shorter response, but I can't promise anything. I'm going to do as much as I feel I need to. And I guess I didn't quote as many left libertarian authors as I thought I would, but I don't want to overbear you, or I don't want to bear over you with all these authors and shit. I've already put enough links to you. I've already linked enough things for you to do. So anyway, just lots and lots of food for thought. I really apologize to everyone that this took so long for it to come out, but I hope it was worth the wait. This is, again, my longest video. I'm not sure how to end it, so I'm just kind of rambling. My positions haven't changed. I'm still left libertarian. I'm sure you're still right libertarian, Lengthen You Neither. I respect that. We probably agree more on things than we disagree, but we definitely do disagree on substantial things, I feel. And we got to hash that out if you want to. We can hash that out if you want to. Now I've got to deal with the CA guy who responded to yours. So we'll see how that goes. If that turns into another hour conversation, he says he's gonna break things up into 10 minutes though. So that means like I'll have to do like split it up into sections: video 1, video 2, video 3, and I'll respond within each one. All within one video though. So thanks a lot, Length Neither. I really appreciate you getting my brain juices going. Sometimes I wonder if they're even there, but you convinced me otherwise, so congratulations. I don't really know how to end this video. Just want to say thanks for the conversation. I totally respect if you want to end it now, and I also totally respect a bit more if you want to keep going. I love conversation. I love debating. Really. So I'll happily keep going with you on this voyage of left libertarianism versus right libertarianism. I understand that I didn't do a definition of right libertarianism, but you can basically, I mean, it's not hard to deduce what it would be, or might look like, underlined, bold, and italicized, might look like. It would basically just be, rightist values, or right-wing values, through libertarian ends, or means. So people like Hoppe and other paleo-libertarians, anarcho-capitalists sometimes, they have sometimes a pretty traditional idea of culture in some respects. Stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say besides that. So thanks again, dude. I really appreciate it. Hope we have no hard feelings about any of this. It's just another, libertarian circle jerk. So, it's nothing personal. I don't drink, so I wouldn't have a nice cold beer on the side with you or anything and talk this over, but I could have some root beer or something, if that counts for anything. Anyway, I'm rambling. I really am rambling. I appreciate the conversation, man. Thanks a lot.